Coach David Buchanan, Coach Chuck Smith, two legendary coaches in Kentucky high school football. This is the Coach's Office, a behind-the-scenes look with two high school coaches.
This week's Coach's Office podcast is being brought to you by Spectrum Graphics, located in Maysville, Kentucky.
Welcome to the Coach's Office, behind the scenes with Chuck Smith and David Buchanan. This is an off-season episode 3. Okay, I'm Chuck Smith. I'm joined by co-host David Buchanan, podcast editor, flashback storyteller Mike Yoakum. And I believe you're really going to enjoy this show tonight. Our guest is the one and only Chris Lofton. I know I'm excited about the show because Chris is one of my all-time favorites. He really is. I don't really know him that well, but I know of him a lot through David. I'll get into that a little bit later. But Chris was not only a star basketball player and the 2004 Mr. Basketball, but he played and he starred as a football player in Kentucky as well. So that's why I'm a big fan. Also, we will discuss the newly elected council for the Kentucky Football Coaches Association and the survey they sent to the football coaches across the state. David, we're going to introduce Chris, or David's going to introduce Chris here in just a second, but I want to tell my Chris Lofton story first. Okay.
All right, let's hear it.
And Chris doesn't, he has no part in this story. He doesn't know anything about this, but I got to know Chris through David. Okay. David, of course, every time I talked to David, when Chris was playing football for him, he bragged on him and bragged on him and bragged on him. You know, he just really was well spoken of Chris, and not only as an athlete, but as as a leader and with the character on the team and all that other stuff. Well, my son Brandon and I would love to go to the Saturday morning games at the Sweet 16. I don't even know if they still do that anymore, but those were the best games. They were so competitive because, you know, the two winners get to go to the championship game. So everybody on the floor was laying everything on the line. So we attended the 2003 semifinal Saturday morning game between Mason County with Chris and Hopkinsville. Wow, what a performance. Like 30 points. He went 4 for 5 on 3-pointers, 11 for 18 with his field goals. And of course, he never misses a free throw. My son and I, Brandon, we look at each other and kind of in disbelief because we know Chris only through David, or I do. And David made him to be this superstar athlete, football and basketball. And I just saw it with my own eyes, and I said, David was really accurate, you know. I said, this guy plays football. I just seen that performance, and this guy's a football player too. And you know, the rest of the story is he went on that night and scored 39 points, hitting 9 of 12 3-pointers, and he led his team to a state championship. You know, he just everything that you hear about Chris is true. He's just a great guy and a great athlete. And you know, the best thing I like is that he was a football player as well. David, you want to bring Chris on?
Yeah. Hey, it's an honor to have Chris tonight. And you know, a little side Chris Lofton, Chuck Smith story. I still remember it like yesterday when we would watch video in the locker room. There was a projector. I sat to the left of the projector. And Chris's locker was to the left of me, so he's always sitting there with me. And we begin ready to start video on Monday or something. Of course, y'all had just killed somebody. Chris would look at me and say, what did Chuck say about the ball game this week? Like that. But he always liked talking about you, Chuck. And we had a lot of fun with that. But, hey, it is fun to have Chris here tonight. Chris, thanks for joining us. And I'm going to jump right in. I cheated a little bit. I'm only supposed to get 3 questions, but I took 4. So I'm going to get the first one here. So, Chris, please tell the audience, what do the letters FTS stand for? And how did we use that when you were a senior at Macon County?
FTS stands for Feed the Stud.
Hey, so tell them, who was the stud?
I was the stud. There were plays to give me the ball on Friday nights.
That's right. Hey, Chris, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but I told my dad one time, I said, hey, the first 10 plays, 6 are going to Chris. My dad said, how come it's not 10? But anyway, yeah, hey, FTS, I wanted our audience to hear about that. Okay, Chuck, we're going to turn it back over to you for the next one here.
All right, Chris, I got a question for you. Hey, you were a great basketball player in high school, and everybody that saw you play knew that basketball was going to be your future. But you chose to play football in high school as well. First of all, why? And then secondly, since you chose to do it, how did you make it work? Tell the audience.
Basketball, football was, basketball was probably 1A, 1B, football and basketball growing up. And, I'm close with a lot of my friends I graduated with, and we've been playing tonight since we were in 4th grade. So, I was part of our day. We were going to play everything, all sports we could all the way up through high school. And, when we got to high school, we chose basketball and football because that was our favorite sport. So it was more of me is like I had so much respect, and I love Coach Buchanan, and it was my friend. So there was no way I could quit on my teammates. I feel like I would have let them down if I would have quit. And number 2, I love football. Like I love Friday nights. I love college football. I love NFL. Like I just love the game, and it's just been a huge part of my life, and that'll never change.
Well, I've told David this many a times. I think you really helped Kentucky high school football, during your era at Mason County because, you were, the star of basketball, and yet you chose to play football. And I think it allowed all the other the dual players, across the state, the ones who played multiple sports, you were kind of like their confirmation that it was okay to do that, and but I've told David that many a time that you were really, really important to Kentucky high school football, really taking, another step forward and getting, the great athletes, to play more than just one sport. So awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I just, growing up, I played everything: basketball, football, baseball, soccer, golf. My parents didn't want me to just play one thing and be done with it. They wanted me to try everything out. And, to this day, I thank them for that. And, when I got to high school, it wasn't going to change. Like football and basketball was my 2 favorite sports. And I knew there was no way I was going to quit football, when I got to high school, especially my senior year, because, coaches were saying that maybe I needed to quit and just focus on basketball my senior year. But, there was no way I could do that and let my teammates and coaching staff down.
Well,
that's pretty impressive.
We were awful thankful with it that he did hang in there. And, a couple things about that. He brought up his mom and dad. He's most certainly a reflection of his mom and dad. They're special people. They did a great job with him. In fact, I get into this a little bit about his grades and how I always knew how to make sure I get him wings because I base it on grades. Grades, but I do want to say this too. I know it's going to sound like a weird thing to say, but I've said it often. Chris probably, I would have thought Chris would have been better in football, except he's the best shooter in the world. And when you're the best shooter in the world, then you need to play basketball. But he really was an excellent football player. And not just the skill part of it. I don't know. Do you remember about the second, third play of the game at Lloyd, your sophomore year? You came back and knocked that sucker out and got the big hit award at that time. Do you remember that, Chris?
Yeah, I do. My sophomore year, definitely.
Yeah. Hey, I gave you a hat right there at halftime. Big hit, Chris Lofton. You knocked that cat out. But he was a tremendous football player and could have definitely played beyond high school and been a Power 5 type guy, but he's the best shooter in the world, and he really is. Okay, Chris, my next question for you: when you were in high school, did you ever figure out that the wings for A's and B's, the meals during 3-a-days, the new cleats, all that you were doing, that I was trying to keep you happy, keep you playing football. Did it ever click with you? Man, coach is really doing a lot to try to keep me happy and keep me.
I thought it was just for everybody. It's for the whole team, not just for me. I felt like, But I remember the wings. The wings are the best, though. I would ask you, we'd always have them. Those were the best times, the wings.
Yeah. Hey, I always said tomorrow. I like that. If Chris wants wings, we're going to have wings. Here's how I could make sure that he would get wings is I based it on grades. And his mom and dad were never going to let him make below a B. Never. So all I had to do is say, okay, everybody's got A's and B's is going to get wings. Well, Chris Lofton's got A's and B's, so he gets to have wings too. And I make sure we take care of him. But I also want to say this though too about that. You asked Chris about how he made it work. It takes a special high character person to navigate what he did. He shot basketball every day. He never missed. He never had an unexcused absence from football. If he was in town, he was there. And it takes a special person, and he just did an incredible job. But yeah, I don't know if your teammates realize this or not, Chris, but you pretty much set the menu for 3 a day. I mean, Chris said he wanted. Okay, that's what we're having for 3 days this year.
Yeah, we had great meals in 3 days. We had great meals. We were catered, like roast beef, mashed potatoes. Like we had great meals.
Hey, I was doing everything I could to keep him and keep him happy.
Hey, Coach, because it was so hot out there. 3 days, that's a long day.
Hey,
we get there like 8:30. We leave to like 4.
I know. Well, here's we went 8 to 10, 10:15 to 11:15. Then we'd eat lunch, and I always remember the last practice was 2:15 to 4:15, and it was full gear. If it was legal to be full gear, it was full gear. And I heard them, when they retired your jersey, and I loved all the stories about how you were always in the gym. But I also thought probably for Chris, shooting in the gym is probably not too rough after surviving 3 days. I did think that. Was I right?
Definitely right. It would be so hot out there. We'd be like praying for the heat index, like, please, no pads.
It takes a lot of commitment to go through a practice and then go over to the gym afterwards and shoot basketball to perfect your game, and not too many like that. Hey, Chris, here's a question for you. What would you say to the young men who want to play multiple sports in high school, but they don't play because they have been told that they need to specialize in one sport?
What I would tell them, I mean, if their heart's in it, I want their heart to be in it. I don't want them just to be playing multiple sports just to do it. Like, if their heart's in both of them, I would do it because I love football. My passion was football, so I was going to give it my all every day in practice, Friday nights, same with basketball. So I would tell them, if they're going to give it off, they really love it, don't hurt your teammates, don't play with the coaching staff. If you're not going to give your all, don't do it. But if you're willing to go the distance, be there for your teammates, practice, show up every day, work hard, I would say go for it. Why not? Because it goes by fast, and you don't want to live with regrets. That's what I would tell them. You don't want to live with regrets, because if I didn't play football my senior year, I would have regretted it. And, I can honestly say I loved it, and it was the best thing I did.
Yeah, I'm a big – and I've never had a football player play that was a basketball player at your level. But I've had a lot of players that play both football and basketball. And I just never believed in specializing. And I wanted them, to be able to, and I'm kind of like David. I would give them, every possibility to play, both sports. And if, I would give up a little bit on my end as long as they were showing that they were committed. And you certainly showed you were committed by going to practice and then going over and shooting in the gym afterwards. But I don't believe in specializing, not in high school. And I think that's kind of what you said is, you didn't want any regrets. You wanted to do everything you could in high school as long as you were in high school, and then no regrets afterwards. Don't specialize. Do what you love to do and play them all if that's what you like.
Absolutely. I stand by that for sure.
Hey, well, Chris, the next one's a little more open ended. But what is your favorite memory from playing high school football?
Favorite memory? One of my favorite memories is with you. Remember when it was the first game of the season, and you had me on field goal block, and every time they would kick a field goal, they would just like nobody would go up your ball. They would just try to attack me every time.
Yeah,
and it was like I was trying to tell you didn't want to believe me, and then you finally took me off field goal block. That's one of my favorites. I was like, Coach, they're trying to kill me. They're not even going after the ball. It was like all of them were coming to attack me every time. And then one when you told me, I was like, Coach, can I get a breather? And he's like, yeah, at halftime.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that too. Bless your heart, man. I remember it was hot. And now don't get mad at me because you're a great player. I'm going to read off some stats here to balance out what I'm about to say. But, I remember, too, that same game. We were playing Breathitt in the Rec Bowl, and they were the defending state champs. And so, we ended up winning pretty well, but we had, it was a big game, but we played well. But, hey, before I bring up this one story, Chris, his career, he had 175 catches, over 3,500 yards, and 40 career receiving TDs. But another memory from that Rec Bowl game against Breathitt County. Do you remember the guys getting after you caught that screen or slant and they caught you about that 85-yard run?
Yes, I remember, of course.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But you should have told them also, well, I've played the whole daggone game, both sides of the ball and all special teams. No wonder they caught me, right?
I remember that. Yeah, everybody, they didn't let me live that down for years.
They stayed after you, didn't they?
They did. But like another great memory is just those Friday nights in Maysville on the field with my teammates. Though, like those are priceless. Like it doesn't get any better than that.
And those were great. And Chris, sometimes I might start to get a little anxious in pregame. And I don't know if you ever noticed this, but every now and then, if I'd get a little nervous, I just walk out my office and look to the left. I'd see you and Dustin and Andre and Jordan. I'd be like, hey, man, I ain't got nothing to worry about. I turn back around and walk back in the office. I'm like, I ain't worried. I'm not worried about it. Hey, something else, too, that Breathitt game. I don't know if you remember this or not. We were watching video of them before we played. We're walking out to practice, and they're the defending state champ. Chris Childers says to me, running clock, coach, I was going to kill him. I'm like, they're the defending state champ. I'm like, shut your mouth. We've got to get to work. And hey, that time Chris Childers was the time that he got pancaked and he said he pancaked the other team, on that one he was wrong. But that day he turned out to be right, didn't he?
He was absolutely right. We killed them that game.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris. Yeah. Can you, go ahead. Chris, let me follow up with another question here, because this off season, our podcast, we focused on weight training and how important it is to develop your potential as an athlete. How has weight training helped you as an athlete? And then, do you believe that weight lifting hurts your basketball game?
No, not at all. Weightlifting helped me a lot. I remember when I got to Tennessee, like I was already ahead of people because I lifted in high school, and the coaches were very impressed, and I knew how to do everything basically, and it made me stronger. It made me run faster. It's just a whole different element that you definitely need in basketball, football, like in everything, honestly, and even for your overall health. I think it's great, to lift weights and take care of your body.
Did you all lift give us kind of what was your weightlifting program? You don't have to give all the details, but what was it like, at Tennessee?
So during the preseason, we would lift probably around, I'd say we were about 4 days a week.
Yeah.
I would say like 2 or 3 days in the weight room. Then one day we'd be all conditioning on the field, doing agility and different stuff like that. But we got after it. But during the season, like when you start in the middle of the SEC season, during that season, we would lift like twice a week.
Yeah.
Not as hard, but we would get it in.
Cut back a little bit. Yeah.
Twice a week, yeah, we would cut back. But the preseason where we got stronger and we got conditioning and all that. But during the season was 2 days a week usually.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of or most football coaches in the state of Kentucky do too, is, when they have guys who play, football and basketball or other sports for that matter, then, they modify the weight program for that athlete when he's in his other season, and, I think that I don't think you can be really a great player without having some sort of physical weight training involved in your career.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
Chris. I'm not sure I even know what I'm talking about, but I always thought this watching you play basketball in high school and especially college. I thought that your shooting range was, just so much better than 95% of the other people you played against, because physically you were so strong. It looked like what was strength-wise an impossible shot for most people. For you, you were so dang strong. You just looked like your shooting range was 10, 15 feet better than most of the people you were playing against. Did you ever think that?
Absolutely. I think, you shoot with your legs. Legs is very important. So, squats and all the leg exercises help me. And me, upper body strength helps too, because it's, it helps with the range also. And, I just made sure, I think I credit that to you, because I don't lift weights without you. You know what I'm saying, Coach Buchanan, because you started me as a freshman football player. That's when I started. So, I owe that to you. So I want to thank you for that for sure. And I love the weight room. That's one of my favorite things to do still to this day, go to the weight room and get a good lift in.
And Chris, I appreciate you saying that, but I do think this is a good spot to bring this up. In 1996, when I got the job at Mason County, the one non-negotiable was weight class. We had to have that. And because we wanted multi-sport guys. And the only way you can really be a multi-sport guy is to have weight class. And for 19 years at Mason County, we had the bulk of our basketball, football kids were in there. Coach Wells, Coach Hearn said, hey, they're yours. You do what you got to do. And I tell you what, a lot of our success, I think, went back to, our school administration made that commitment. Fred Hester, Dwayne Lambert, Steve Appleman, Chris O'Hearn then. So those guys made a commitment, and our counselors, Aaron Neal, Pam Stewart, Kent Moore. But you guys were in there. You were in there, and in fact, I think the only person that was one of our main players that missed one year, Matt Gilbert, missed it his freshman year. But after that, he had it his sophomore and junior year. And I got to give the Mason County Schools Administration credit on this one, because they made a commitment to have weight class for you guys, and then you all tore it up. I was really proud of that, because you all took advantage of the opportunity. And I want to give them some credit,
Absolutely. It was great.
Hey, Chris, and I want to finish up with this comment with you, but it's very rare that you have an athlete that excels so much in one sport play multiple sports in high school. That just doesn't happen very often across the anywhere, any state. But what I really admire about you is you not being told what you should do and doing what you really wanted to do. And I think that is special and very rare, and just a small percentage of men fall into that category. That really, in my eyes, you're really a special person, to be able to not only make that commitment, probably you had, and I couldn't even imagine the kind of pressure you probably had, after probably going into your senior year, just to focus on one sport because of all the attention you were getting. But yet you did what you wanted to do and not what people were telling you probably should do. That's a special person, and classy guy.
Really appreciate it. Just just doing what I love to do, and keeping God first. And it's I saw my mom and dad get up and go to work every morning, and they taught me about hard work, and that's what I was going to do in the classroom in basketball and football. I wanted to be the best at both sports, and that's why I worked the way I did, through my career.
Chris, my last question, we've already talked about it a little bit, but I want to give you a chance to elaborate. Now it's outlawed, the 3-a-days that you all did. Now, if we did 3-a-days, I'm going to tell. The last practice of the day in August, 2:15 to 4:15, a lot of times we were full gear. And I know we sort of talked about it, but give you a chance to talk a little more. Did that experience make college basketball seem a little easier?
It did, because if you could go through it 3 days, you can go through any practice. And that's how I felt when I got to Tennessee, because it's more mental.
Yeah.
It's more mental. In high school, you get challenged mentally, and we never quit. We stuck it out. We kept fighting to the end, and we made it every year. So it was good for us mentally, and it was good for us to be together a lot like that as a team, because when you have a good relationship with your teammates, it helps a lot. It carries over onto the field, because it's one of those where you want to go all out for that guy beside you. Your locker room partner, your quarterback, your receiver, that lineman. Like, you want to go all out. So you can't cheat. You got to leave it all on the field every night.
Well, I tell you what, Chris, I mean, it's been an overwhelming experience to get to coach you, and I'm so thankful that you did this tonight, because I think it'll give our listeners and people a little bit more of a glimpse into when I've been saying to people for 20 plus years, say, hey, Chris Lofton's a better person than he is basketball player. They sort of look at me like, huh? And but it really is true. And man, I just thank you so much for making time to do this tonight. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks for y'all having me. I loved it. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Chris. You were really so much fun to watch, and we appreciate you being a part of our show.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, David.
That was great.
Yeah, David, that brings us to our next segment, which is we're going to discuss the Kentucky Football Coaches Association elected council, the survey, the questions, and the results. I don't know if we got the results or not, but we'll get into that in just a second. And then, really what happens next. And you know more about the results than I do. So I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the council, if you don't care.
Yes, sir.
First of all, they're elected by the peers. And to introduce them all, there was 2 for each class, and there was 1 for the West, 1 for the East, and then covering all 6 classes. And then we had a special selected Marvin Dantzler of Louisville Central was special selected to also join that council. But 1A West was Dale Estes of Campbellsville. 1A East was Chris McNamee of Pikeville. Class 2A West was Joe Morris of Mayfield. Class 2A East was Clay Clevenger of Somerset. 3A West was Steve Stonebreaker of Adair County. And 3A East was Bill Spencer from Fleming County. And 4A West was David Clark for Barchtown. And 4A East was Justin Haddix of Boyle County. 5A West was John Edge of Apollo. 5A East is Jim McKee of Scott County. And then the classification of 6A was West was Josh Abel of Fern Creek. 6A East was Nathan McPeak of Frederick Douglass. And as I said, Marvin Dantzler, also of Louisville Central, joined that elected council. The council, the executive person over that council is the executive assistant for the Kentucky Football Coaches Association, and that's our very own David Buchanan. And David is the one who really was his vision to get it started. I've said that many times on the shows. I'm not going to get back into that, but will tell you this. it just wouldn't be what it is today without David's leadership and guidance and organization and attention to detail. And now this is the voice of Kentucky high school football. We're talking about all these guys. They were elected by the coaches across the state of Kentucky. That they were elected. They weren't put on they were elected. And so they are really your voice. So if you're in the 1A West, Dale Estes is your representative. If you need something done, you go through Dale. And this is the this is the voice of Kentucky. Now listen to this. This is their duties. This is how organized this thing is. Their duties and what they're kind of sworn to do by being selected by their peers is, first of all, be a positive and influential voice of the Kentucky high school football, and what is best for their respective districts and class. Communicate with the head coaches in their respective districts and classification. They should want to represent what is best for Kentucky High School Athletic Association, the Kentucky Football Coaches Association, and Kentucky high school football in general. And then these are their duties. These are the responsibilities. And then they will meet a minimum of 3 times a year. So, as a Kentucky high school football coach, you should get involved, vote, share ideas, participate. You have a voice. You have a representative. It's your duty to make Kentucky football the best it can be. And sometimes, David, I get frustrated. When it's voted on, they say, well, there's maybe 225 football playing schools in Kentucky, and we had 175 people respond. Well, what? Where's the other 50? Where's the other 50? What's going on here? What do you mean? Where's the other 50? It's your duty. It's your responsibility to your kids. It's your responsibility to your community, to your school, to your football program to participate, even if you don't like what's being shared and what's being talked about. It's your duty to get involved, say your piece. It's not always going to go your way. I know it never always went my way. Actually, it never didn't go my way many times, but I still participated. I still voted. I still shared my ideas. It doesn't, don't ever think that, oh, well, little old me here in this particular school, it really doesn't matter if I do or not. It does matter. So I think everybody needs to be involved, and I get frustrated when they're not. And I think you got a great elected council. You're well represented. You got leaders that I think are go-getters. These guys I know most all of them, and they're real impressive guys. They're leaders. They're go-getters. They want to get things done. And I think really and truly they want what's best for Kentucky high school football.
Well, I sure hope so. That's what we need to be about. And, we put this together in 2020. Our elected council did a great job of helping us to have a season, and the data that was collected to show what our coaches were doing. And it was a good thing to say that summer 2020, I could say, hey, I'm not sure if the safest place to be right now with fighting COVID in a Kentucky high school football workout. That's the type of job that people were doing. So it's been really good for us. Just to give everybody a little bit of an update, last week we surveyed our coaches on 3 topics. This came out of our elected council meeting. It was the transfer issues, transfers, the numbers just exploding right now. We also revisited a little bit 7-on-7 about possibly bringing it back to June. And then we also wanted to look at the RPI. So I don't have all the details in front of me. When I have looked at those surveys, and let me also say this. When we did the election, Tyler Mattingly handled it. I don't do it. Tyler tells me who won. I don't even know what the number of votes are. Tyler says, here are your winners. This survey, Tyler has shared with all of our council the survey Excel sheet. And I can tell you this right now, on those issues, I don't see a lot of consensus. But I will say this, though. because of Tyler's role, Tyler Mattingly, he's the AD at East Jessamine. Tyler, had from meetings knew that the transfer issue was really becoming problemsome for the KHSAA. And really getting to the point that can you really enforce bylaw 6 anymore? And then along with that goes bylaw 16. So we issued a statement last week. We were able to do this. The elected council members, those 13 men, did say they would like to see transfers handled between the ADs of both schools involved. And if there's no problem, it never goes to the KHSAA office. And the point is that, most transfers, there's not a big deal on them. I mean, kids move, things like that. So let's get that out of Lexington. And now that way, hopefully, Julian and his staff would be able to handle the ones that are problematic, and therefore possibly be able to enforce bylaw 6 more effectively. So that's something that we think is worth looking at. We're going to continue to talk to our head coaches across the state with our survey. But the point in all of this is, and we talked about this as an elected council, we want to be a resource and a source of solutions. We don't want to give Julian a list of things we're mad about. That's not the point. The point is how can we help make solutions? How can we contribute to making things better for Kentucky high school football, for everybody, not just the school that we coach at? And I think we're off to a good start. And every day that we do our business well sets a great precedent going forward. So we're excited about it. And, you're our advisor, and I'm really glad that you've been a part of that, because I think we're really onto something good. And with some of the events that had happened over the last 5 or 6 years, we had to figure out a way to have a voice for the Kentucky high school football coach. And to be fair, there were a lot of times that we were divided. There were a lot of times that we were asking for different things and fighting against each other. And we had to come up with a solution if we wanted to be taken seriously. And we've tried to do that.
Yeah, and there's only been one meeting of the new elected council so far. And as a result of that meeting, then those 3 things that David talked about came out of that meeting. There's like 3 options for transfer. The RPI of how the out-of-state schools were going to be calculated. But, again, I think it's important that everybody participate and everybody, go through your representative and voice your opinion about what you think is important to Kentucky high school football. But also remember that we got to go on a consensus. We got to get the majority, and we got to work towards the majority. Not everybody is going to be for everything that the majority of the people are for, but you got to have to understand that if your idea is not the one that's picked, then it's nothing personal. We got to have the majority of the people working toward the same thing.
Absolutely. Well, hey, as we shut this down, just want to tell our listeners, we're tweaking it this month. We're actually going to have another episode Thursday night, March 9th at 7:30. And when I tell you who we're going to have, you're not going to believe me, but it's going to be Frank Minifield, Derek Ramsey, and Steve Parker. And we're going to talk about the Kentucky Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Blanton Collier Sportsmanship Foundation. So we're going to talk about those 2 organizations, but also, and we know our listeners want to hear some football from those 3 guys, and that's going to be part of it. So we're really excited. And hey, March, we're going to come out with 2 episodes.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We truly appreciate it, and thank Mike for all the work that he does to make us sound good, and we'll see you next time.
This week on the Coach's Office podcast, we heard from one of Kentucky's legendary multi-sport stars, Chris Lofton. And in this week's flashback, we'll go back to 1936 to take a look at one of the state's first legendary multi-sport stars. This legend hailed from the tiny town of Benham and played at Benham High School. Spider Thurman was and still is a legend in the mountains of eastern Kentucky. He set records in football, basketball, and track at Benham High. He was named to the All-District, All-Region, and All-State teams in football and basketball. Out of high school, he was recruited by UK, Tennessee, and LSU and others, but he turned them all down to attend Eastern Kentucky University to play for Coach Rome Rankin. And all Spider did at Eastern was lead them to 2 KIAC titles and the first unbeaten and untied season in school history. He was named All-KIAC, and in 1940 was a Little College All-American at quarterback. He also starred on the hardwood at EKU, and he lettered on the track team. Following a stint in the military, Spider Thurman started his illustrious coaching career at Clay County High School on the basketball side of things. For years, Clay County basketball symbolized greatness in Kentucky high school hoops, and Spider Thurman was the man who laid that foundation. For 12 seasons, his teams won 279 games and lost only 54. He averaged 23 wins a year and only 4 losses. Prior to his arrival, Clay County had not made a Sweet 16 appearance. In his 12 seasons, though, the Tigers made 6 trips to the Sweet 16. His 1952-53 team rolled through the season unbeaten and narrowly fell in the state tournament to eventual champ Lafayette. He started the track and baseball programs at Clay County, and he started youth football, providing the impetus for a high school team at Clay County. The basketball team played its games in the J.W. Spider Thurman Gym, and games were played on Spider's Court. He is in the Kentucky Athletics Hall of Fame, the EKU Athletics Hall of Fame, and the KABC Court of Honor. Another Kentucky multi-sport legend, Spider Thurman. Join us for another edition of the Coach's Office Podcast. You can find the Coach's Office Podcast at most podcast outlets, including Apple, iHeart, Spotify, and Amazon. This week's Coach's Office Podcast has been brought to you by Spectrum Graphics, located in Maysville, Kentucky.